Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our City Council meeting, Sueur City Council meeting, January 24, 2022. At this time, I will call our meeting to order, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council members, you've all been given your packets this weekend. You've had a chance to look over the agenda. At this time, I will ask for an approval or a motion. Mr. Schlueter.
Mayor, I'd like to make one change to the agenda. I'd like to make a motion to move item 4F to the regular agenda.
Okay. Is that a motion then?
Yeah.
So the motion is we approve the agenda with the exception of 4F, Colden Funeral Home and United Methodist Church request. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Krogman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to the consent agenda then. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine and have been made available to the City Council at least 2 days in advance of the meeting. These items will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the agenda and considered in normal sequence. This time I'll ask our city administrator, Mr. Krugel, to review these with us.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kirby, members of City Council. Tonight we have the minutes from the previous meeting on January 10th. We have disbursement approvals through today, January 24th. Those disbursements total just over $840,000. Items of note are our interest payments for our PFA loan on the wastewater treatment plant. We have 2 debt service payments for street projects, 2020 and 2021. Magni Construction, which is in here for the well in the well house, pay app number 4. We have our sales tax payment to the state of Minnesota for December, and then a Pember Company's payment for the South Main Street project. The third item, we have that Magni Construction well number 8 that I just mentioned. We have board and commission appointments. We have one individual. Let me just get their names. Holly Spies, I believe. Spies. She applied for the Planning Commission, recommended to be appointed there. And then we also have Jack Roberts to the HRA. The Planning Commission appointment is through the December 31st, 2023, and the HRA Commission appointment term is through December 31st, 2024. And then we have surplus materials declaration. This is a maneuver. We had some items where we have a trade-in amount. Based on the market that we have right now, we feel we can get more money for those items if we just sell them outright per our surplus materials policy. So we should net probably around $5,000 to $10,000 more dollars by selling these on our own. So we're declaring them surplus instead of trading them in. And that last item on the Colden Funeral Home request has been added as agenda item 6B. So I'll entertain any questions if anybody has any.
Anybody? Any questions for our city administrator regarding these consent agenda items?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Swanberg. I got a motion seconded by Mr. Sullivan. All those or any other discussion, comments, concerns? Otherwise, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to public comment. Public comment provides the opportunity for the public to address the council on items that are not on the agenda. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Persons wishing to make a comment must sign up in advance of the meeting on a sheet that is provided and identify themselves by providing their name and address. I don't think we have anybody tonight that wants to address the council. Am I correct? Correct. Thank you. Moving on to the regular agenda items. Agenda item 6A, County and State Highway CASA 36. Mr. Beanfag, welcome tonight.
Welcome, Mr. Mayor, council members. So tonight, I'm here to talk about 36 again, and tonight we are requesting formal action. So last meeting, I gave kind of a project update, got a little bit more information that I want to update you on. And then tonight we will have a request here for authorization to proceed with the project process. So County State Aid, CASA 36, summary of timeline here. We did have a few scheduled milestones since last time that we met. So on the 10th, I gave an update. That same week, Thursday, we had a neighborhood meeting, our second neighborhood meeting, where we opened up to the public here at City Hall, had some boards, and were able to answer some questions. I'll cover that in a little greater detail. And then tonight formally is the request to consider approval of the final plans and specs, and that authorization then to go out and secure bids, and that's a required process of the Chapter 429. Right now, our schedule and our hopeful goal is that we'd be officially advertised in the paper and on our electronic bidding Quest CDN here February 2nd. That will have some contingency based on MnDOT approval that I'll cover also in a little greater detail, but that's our hopeful schedule. And then we have a requirement to publish or advertise for a 3-week period, and then really trying to open those bids there end of February is our hopeful schedule. If MnDOT review and things require additional time, we'll just continue to slip that date as minimal as possible to get those bids opened as soon as possible. And then forecasting out, we'd have another neighborhood meeting prior to construction. We've had good luck with that, just to have it kind of fresh on everybody's mind once the season starts to change, and be able to communicate who that contractor is and identify contacts, and then that hopeful start of construction here this spring, and then those construction milestones, end of this fall here, substantial, and then next spring, the final. So on the 13th, we had an open house here again at City Hall. It was from 4 to 6. Not everybody signs in, so I'd estimate about 24 people were in attendance. And really, it was some fresh faces, to be honest with you, since the first open house. Some questions on the preliminary assessment, which I shared on the 10th. We got our benefit appraisal, so we did share that preliminary role in that open house invite. So folks are getting that range of assessments that we're recommending. So there's some questions on that. We did get some feedback on new sidewalks, both both positive and negative. So there's folks representing, I'd say, both sides on that. We had a citizen come and identify the RFB, that bump out that we're proposing at Reisdorf, and kind of an interesting observation with the loss of parking with that bump out. And so we had a resident that was concerned about that, and we're working through, I think, an alternative to shift that to the other side of the intersection to kind of address their concern. So not a common thing where you hear that on-street parking is really valuable, but in this case, just the size of the family and stuff, I think we have an opportunity to be considerate of that. And then we had some observation at the 4-way stop here in South South Main and Ferry with that new connection with the mall South Main. It's a 4-leg intersection, but 3-way stop. And we have a few of those in town, but they're awkward, and they leave a little bit of some uncertainty about outsiders, especially about who's stopping and yielding to who. So I think we're gonna put some serious consideration and make this intersection a 4-way stop right down the hill from City Hall. I think there's value to it, and I think it'll lead to a little bit more kind of common understanding. There's some site restrictions, some sightline restrictions too. So that was good. I wouldn't say it's something we've oversighted. We studied it, but I think it was kind of tipping it to be like, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. So overall, it was good. You always like these to be a little bit better attended, but you have them nonetheless. So, and then really the action tonight is the final plan. So we're at 100% plan. It's in for MnDOT review, so it's not as if this doesn't have a little bit of time for change and a little bit of fluctuation, but it's nearly there. It's what I'd call a biddable plan by all means. So we talked last time about the speed study and some of our strategies in that final plan that we've included to try to promote that compliance. And a lot of this is all repeat, but I did want to share, we've got that detail of the entrance monument. So we're looking at some curve modifications, realigning that 3rd Street intersection, bringing in a monument. And we're really trying to kind of tie in some of the other monuments with, the structural steel of South Main, being true to that. This is a South Main corridor. bringing in some of the limestone texture that we have on South Main, but then bringing in some of the brick and some of the aesthetic of 93. So I think this will be kind of a pretty cool feature here to, kind of tie in some of the other entrance monuments all in one. Looking at lane widths, that bump out that I mentioned at Risedorf, the dynamic speed signs. So we have a number of strategies at the final plan, just for reiteration, that we're proposing to help with that speed. The other piece here, just to talk about the final plan, there's been a lot of emphasis and discussion on sidewalks, and just so that everyone's very clear, the final plan includes sidewalks, both sides, all the way to South 3rd Street. So that is where they're terminating at that intersection. We'll have a road crossing there. And as I shared last time, we are going to be required to get a temporary easement for all locations that don't have sidewalk today. So any place there's going to be new sidewalk, which is a portion on both sides, we will be going out and asking for a temporary easement. That's basically a temporary allowance to grade that sidewalk in. The sidewalk is residing in a permanent right-of-way, though. There's a platted right-of-way on this corridor, and all of the permanent physical concrete is going to be inside the right-of-way. So this is truly a temporary thing to grade the yard and restore the yard as grass, but just to have everything fit and be better maintained. There is some grade on the south end of town for folks that are familiar, so there's going to be some impact. That easement acquisition is planned to happen in February. So we're going to be active, very active here in the next coming weeks to try to secure those easements. There's been some discussion on costs, and just to reiterate and make sure that the record's clear, all sidewalk costs are 100% state aid funded. So those are being covered by the county. And so as part of their CASA, county state aid corridor, they get funding for improvements to those corridors. And so that is being covered as part of that. That's an eligible expense. And then the goal of a state aid corridor, there's really a tasking of counties and those managers of these state aid routes to be mindful of all all users. We've emphasized that this is a county corridor. It's a truck route. We're designing for trucks as well as motorists, and then as well as pedestrians. So that's a thing that we're considering. And we, not only from a county perspective in town, but we've got a precedence as a city, Elmwood, CASA 22. And then I clipped right out of our comp plan here. There's about 3 or 4 of these that literally speak to sidewalks on new corridors, improvements to sidewalks. So this is a city initiative as well, straight out of our comp plan. A lot of literalness to increase, mobility for all users. So I think there's a lot of support for a design that includes sidewalks, even if they're not there today. And then continuing here a little bit on the final plans. So the final draft I shared of the benefit appraisal has been received by staff, by the city, from that third-party appraiser. And we've then went through and prepared that preliminary assessment roll, and we've shared that. So that is available to everyone that has that we intend to assess. And then that final adoption doesn't happen until this fall. So just really emphasizing that if folks, got that role and have some comments, want additional information, we have some time to provide that. The assessment, all the layouts from the open house, those are all available on the project website. So that information is available for folks that want to be educated and want to be able to reference that. And then one of the pieces that I didn't have last time, but we do have now, is we've got that final cost estimate. And I am able to communicate that we're within contingency of that feasibility report. So we always try to have some contingency, and I think we've honed in on these costs now, so that contingency is gone, but we did need it from that preliminary estimate last spring. You can see the breakdown there. So county, right around that 4.3 million, city, 3 million. And that's really the sewer and the water. That's a big part here with us extending mains to the south city limits. We have a portion of the storm, and then we have a little bit of investment on West Ferry. There's that leg that goes down to the parking lot there. That's not county state aid. So, and then we have some streetscape things like the monument. Those things are non-participating. So that makes up our city portion, right around a $7.3 million project. That's estimated, of course, at this time. And then if folks have been tracking in the preliminary engineers report, we had a number a little bit greater. And so just following through that preliminary engineer's report, we had the parking lot, which we've now, moved to a different year, 2023. And then we were also including a pretty large electrical piece that's happening separate. So that's that other electric conversion project that's happening on 2nd Street and going all the way up here to LS Engineer. So that substation. So that was included in our PR, just from a financial standpoint. So I think, hopefully bids are good. And I think we're estimating right where we want to be. So then the other piece that is new is our staging. So everyone's always a little curious, and we had this available at the open house, how we're going to build this. And I think I've been indicating all along, we're starting right at Main and Ferry. We've got that identified as stage 1A. That's kind of that little section there, that 1 block section. We're anticipating a 3-week time frame, get in and get out of there, get that intersection back open. That's really critical, obviously, to serving that west parking lot. And then we've got this kind of sub-staged out. We have a stage 2, 2A, and then a stage 3. And really the balance of staging, and I think I shared this when we were doing the CASAT 22, is you're trying to give them enough workspace so that they can efficiently do the project, they can efficiently keep their crews moving, but yet then it's a balance of maintaining accessibility and not just disrupting the entire stretch of roadway. So I think this is a good balance of that, trying to be mindful of that. And then interim in here, we're going to try to keep intersections open to the extent we can. So this corridor is going to be a lot better in the sense that we have a great detour where we didn't always have these last 2 summers. So we can detour to 115 and come up Elmwood. That's going to be a huge benefit regionally. It's just going to be the balance here of people wanting to get into town and those folks wanting to get home. But I think we have a pretty good connectivity with 2nd Street and some of those. We have some alleys on that east side. So I think it's going to be okay. There's always challenges and inconveniences, of course, but so we've got our staging laid out, I think, to what we think is the good balance again of workspace, but yet access. And then I did include in here the layout sheets, and I'll just walk through these really quickly. Any questions at all before I jump into layouts? Is council curious on anything, or maybe, wanted to clarify something that I covered last time or something that's come up in the last couple of weeks that you want to make sure that I hit on? Otherwise, I'll just kind of cruise through them here real quick again. So this is the south end. We're extending curb and gutter to that 30-mile-an-hour zone, realigning 3rd Street. We mentioned that as one of our traffic strategies from a speed standpoint. We've got some striping there on the shouldering to narrow those lanes even further visually. The county was leery about bringing the curb in. So, other than times of snow cover, that should be visible and really help restrict that down to that 11-foot lane there on the south edge of town. Visible is the sidewalk extensions that I mentioned coming down into 3rd Street there. So I think really, a good visual here, what we're proposing on the very south end. The middle here is this is all new sidewalk as far as both west and east side. A full reconstruction here of obviously all the roadway surface itself. We are looking at narrowing this corridor, so it's the same width as what we did on 22 Ferry and Elmwood. It's a 40-foot face-to-face. So in this area, it's about a 2-foot narrowing each side. So it's going to add to the boulevard space, with hopefully helps with some of that sidewalk snow removal and just getting that offset from the road. So we're in every case fully utilizing the right-of-way. The sidewalk's 1 foot off the right-of-way, so we're trying to maximize that non-roadway space to the extent we can. And as we work our way up through here, Cantwell, Davis. For folks that are familiar, Davis has a pretty good dip today. We're going to be looking at bringing that road up. It actually fits really well to do that, kind of, make gentler that vertical curve. So we're going to take an opportunity to be able to do that. We're raising it about a foot, I think in the most case, the maximum case. So bringing ourselves through, we have a big storm sewer all fall right on the west side there of Davis. And then kind of getting now into that true straight north-south section, we get ourselves into Reisdorf. And this is where that comment was made, 328 there, noticing that, they lost all their on-street parking between their driveway and the bump out. So looking at maybe flipping that to the south side of the intersection and getting that on-street parking. There's really, it's one side or the other, really. It doesn't make a great deal of difference for the function of the RFB and the bump out. We just assumed the north side. But I think the south side is going to work just fine, and it really matches Ferry Street, almost identical to 5th Street there. So So I think that's something we can pursue and provide that benefit back. Then we find ourselves in that very north end now of Main Street, building face to building face. I shared last time, sizable street narrowing here, about 3 feet each side, 4 feet each side. So it's gonna feel quite a bit different, and that really gives us an opportunity to give some of the boulevard space back, pull that curb away from the building. And then I shared last time, we're looking at getting zero height entry on that east side businesses. So that's really valuable to get that extra space to raise that sidewalk up so we can give those folks a ramp in and eliminate all the steps there. There's five entrances off of Main Street that have steps today. So I think we're looking at eliminating all those, and the road narrowing is a huge, really a difference maker in being able to do that. And then we find ourselves on Ferry itself, literally. So there's that one block between South Main and the parking lot. That's the non-participating, that's the local leg that we're reconstructing as this. It makes a great deal of sense. The storm sewer goes underneath the railroad tracks to the river here. So it made a lot of sense to go down this block and tie it all together. And then we'll obviously tie in the parking lot next year too. So that will be all newly improved. Going then further, east of Main Street, we are narrowing this section as well, and being able to pull that curve away from the building face, add to the boulevard. We're able to improve some utilities to the library. The services are in really poor shape, so that's a value here at Ferry Street to be able to do that. And then working our way then up past City Hall. There's no storm sewer in Ferry today, so we've got some awkwardness, or no sanitary as far as how some services are being fed. So we're extending sanitary up Ferry, looking at storm sewer, and then a full rebuild of the retaining walls. So that Ferry's on this 2-block stretch is going to very much mimic Bridge Street. So they're almost identical in grade and really positioned. So, and then we connect into 4th Street. We stay out of 4th Street, so that would be available all during the project. We rebuilt that with 22, and that completes the official 36 corridor. Then that's where the county road number changes. So then really where we're at right now is we have this 100% plan. That's what we submitted to MnDOT, and then we're really waiting for their approval and signature at the bottom, which I guess would be probably the bottom right for you. That's a state aid approval that comes from MnDOT. The district state aid engineer signs that. We've got approval from the county board have already approved this plan, so we're just really waiting for that. That allows us to officially go out for bids. And then definitely very open for any questions, but the recommendation then is to ask for that acceptance of our resolution. And I did have a revised one. Jasper noted that there was a county engineers conference. I wasn't able to confirm with Dave the bid opening date. He did have a condition that has to move it 1 day based on his policy. So we just slipped that from the 24th to the 25th, but it's acceptance of the final plans and specs. Contingent on MnDOT approval, of course, we'd make changes that they would require as part of the review, and then that allowance to advertise to get that ad in the paper, which we are legally required to do. So that's really the ask of tonight. But first, I'd be more than happy to address any questions or concerns. Mr. Mayor, Council.
Anybody with any questions?
I have a quick one. I have the resolution in front of me that was in our packet. Are we to change the date right in the middle of 3 p.m. on February 24th to the 25th?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
One other question, Mr. Beanfang, maybe you covered that and I may have missed it, but what's the anticipation of the length of this project, starting when and ending when?
Yeah, it's a good question. Right now, the start date is always to be determined to an extent, right? Because we just don't know when weather is going to turn and spring is going to be here and winter is over. I would say it's very likely we'll be in construction by May, around that 1st of May. We'll certainly, I think, take advantage of any time in April. We started 22 on April 15th each of the years. So if weather allows, I do anticipate this project is large enough that they'll get going. This would be a call guys off the layoff, start a year off kind of project. So I think that it's that April, May start date. And then I'm pretty confident that we have I think it's a feasible, but it's going to take to the end of October to complete this. And that would be, the expectation there would be everything is paved, sidewalks are in, turf is restored, maybe not fully growing, but it's planted, it's there to be established. And then we are planning to leave the wear course off. This corridor is going to have a lot of excavation. We have some deep manholes on the south end of town. So that strategy is always to, if we are able, let that kind of, bottom and middle lift of asphalt remain through the winter, let things settle out. And the idea always, if you have a situation where something settles or moves, you can repair it, and then you lay your final lift over top and no one can really see the repair. And that's the strategy. The only negative to it is you just have to be really careful street winter maintenance, so you're not snowplow damaging your curb because it's obviously exposed. But we had good luck on 22. We didn't have any repairs, but you hope not to. But I think we'd advocate for the same. And so we always try to give them, June's a good paving month. And so we'd like to give them till probably the end of June to get that final wear lift on. But that would be the only piece of work, and obviously some warranty things. So I think it's substantial end of October, Mr. Mayor. And I think it's end of June 23 before we're at least on paper done.
And one other real quick question. We were talking about accessibility for residents down there. East side, I think there's a lot of alleyways in there. West side, is that side going to be?
It's going to be
accommodate?
tricky. It's going to be a lot like we experienced on Elmwood, where, on that east side, there isn't that alley. So it's going to be side streets. That's really the literalness, in a project in dry weather conditions, we will make effort to get folks to their garages, to get home, unload groceries and do those sorts of things. Just always have to caveat it, inclement weather, and we can't always guarantee, but we'll do effort that we can. And the literalness is those west side residences, unfortunately, will at times potentially have to walk from a side street. That's just the reality for those folks, for residential. And then we understand we have some commercial needs on that north end, and I've been actively communicating with all those. We do have that, I guess, Smith Street alley that we'll be utilizing fully. And we have some strategies of how we stage sidewalk and road construction that we plan to implement here to make sure that business access is provided at all times. So we're not shutting businesses down. But just again, caveating that won't mean vehicle access, of course. It's going to mean walking. So just do the best we can, but it is no doubt a bit of a challenge when you have no backside support from a road connection. So I think,
good.
we'll just
Thank you.
fingers crossed there.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I don't have any questions, but I did want to thank you, Corey and Eric, for the work you did at the open house. I thought you did a very good job.
Thank you.
With that, I will entertain any motions to carry out the request for tonight. Staff recommends that the city council adopt the attached resolution approving the final plans and specifications contingent on the final MnDOT state aid approval for CASA 36.
So
Improvement.
moved.
Thank you. Didn't get through it all, but that's fine. So we've got a motion made by Mr. Schleter,
Second.
been seconded by Mr. Huntington.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Why aren't we considering the resolution? Why are we using this recommendation and not adopting this resolution? Am I missing something? The resolution has a lot more detail than we see up on the screen. It's got dates. That's not on the screen.
You'll pull up the resolution.
Oh, if I may,
Go ahead.
I believe the motion was to approve the resolution.
Well, I didn't hear that. It's not on the screen.
Okay.
It was just what's there. Okay, what is it? What is the attached resolution?
If somebody want
Can we
to,
at least cite it by number, R 2020-005, so we have some preciseness here?
is there a number?
Yes, there is. It's R 2022-005.
Okay. We have a motion to adopt resolution R 2022, again, the last four numbers, 005.
So moved.
Mr. Schleter, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Huntington. Any other discussion, comments, concerns?
I will make a quick comment. We
Thank
have
you.
received written comments from two landowners, homeowners, I guess we could say, in that area, Ms. Faches and is it Robertson? I apologize. I have it here. I'll have to look. Thank you. I just would note that I think all of us have received that in writing. Everyone on the council has received it. I had a hard copy given to me today and it came in email. So just so that citizens know that
We've
those have
received
been
it,
received.
as I have also. Duly noted. Thank you. Any other discussion, comments, concerns? Otherwise, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beanfang. We appreciate your input. Very good. Moving on to item number 6B. That's been renumbered. What is the new number for that? It's
It is 6B.
oh, is it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Colden Funeral Home and United Methodist Church request. Do you want to review that for us, Mr. Krugel?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Kirby, members of council. In your packet, this was included on the consent agenda. I'll just give a brief history of this area from what I could decipher from my investigation into this area. This is an area that the city does have utilities. I want to make sure that that's clear, that run north and south in this corridor that's kind of described with a yellow box here. And this is the area that Colden Funeral Home and United Methodist Church have requested that the city continue to provide snow removal services for and do periodic pothole patching, things of that nature of the asphalt. I was able to confirm with city staff, existing city staff, that we've been doing things of that nature in that area for at least 25 years. In the letter that was attached in the packet, you can see the request determines that it's been over 60 years. So I have also been able to confirm that this area was created into like a road or a gravel path back about 60 years ago. So that correlates with that statement as well. So what's essentially being requested here is a quid pro quo. The areas outlined in blue are areas that are used typically for parking, sometimes during events at Joe Eagle Anderson Park. The area on the north side of this figure is directly adjacent to the park. The area that is part of the United Methodist Church parking lot obviously isn't, but that's kind of overflow parking, and the church has been generally acceptable of the parking there from time to time. So essentially what would be happening is we would continue the practice of removing the snow in that yellow area. In turn, the city would be able to retain the ability to allow patrons to park in the blue areas. Tonight, we're not approving any agreement. All I'm requesting is that City Council provide some direction if I'm authorized to work with legal counsel to develop an agreement it would be Colden Funeral Home and the United Methodist Church, and bring that back at a future meeting here at City Council. So, and in general, what that would mean is that the city would remove the snow in the yellow area. We would periodically fill the potholes in the yellow area, and the United Methodist Church would allow us the use of their property for parking. Future maintenance, so let's say 10 years down the road, there's a full reconstruction or something of that nature that needs to be done, full rehab of the surface. That would then have to be determined at that time, because there should be some sort of cost split determined at that time. So what we're looking for is just direction, can be via a motion if City Council would like to direct me to work with legal counsel to prepare an agreement regarding these terms.
Can you go back one slide again? So the area to the north between the blues, that's all church land?
That is correct.
In the north box there, that's fairly accurate is where their property line would go to?
I believe so. And then generally that's where people park.
Yep.
For Joe Eagle Anderson Park access is right along those evergreen pine trees.
There really isn't any other options other than off, on street.
Correct.
Anybody else?
And you also said that we do have utilities under that road.
We do have sewer utilities under that road. And as we do projects, or if we don't have easements for these areas, which I don't believe we have an easement technically for this, during projects we acquire that. Through this process, we would have that conversation as well to incorporate that into either a separate agreement likely, but make sure we have that covered. But that I believe is the original reason why this is even there, is for those utilities.
I have a concern about an agreement, and I realize we don't have one in front of us, but just some input. It seems to me that there ought to be one of two types of things in such an agreement. Either that any of the parties can terminate it with a certain amount of notification. So it's not perpetual. I don't want to have something that ties everybody up forever and ever, because we don't know what's going to happen. If either of those two establishments are no longer there, what happens? The other is maybe to have a time limit of 10 years and then it has to be redone, although I can just see how that would get lost in the shuffle. But I think the agreement should basically have something that says, with a given notice, parties may withdraw. Interestingly, you've got two parties, Colden and the Methodist Church, who, if they don't agree, it could cause havoc. If you think about it, what if one of them wants to sell their property and we have an agreement that half the road is now up in the air? So we need something like that. It's not my issue to figure out how to do it, but I think our legal counsel needs to look at that very carefully. So I've said my piece. I'm glad I wouldn't have to draft it.
Anybody else? This isn't a voting matter. I take it we're just directing you to move ahead with some type of legal agreement with the two parties?
There could be a motion that gives me direction.
Okay. Okay.
I would make that motion requesting that legal counsel draft an agreement.
I'll second.
Mr. Swanberg, thank you for the motion. Mr. Sullivan, thank you for seconding it. All those, or before I go with the vote, anybody have any questions, concerns, comments? Otherwise, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. Very good. Thank you. Moving on to comments, reports of items of appreciation, any community events you want to share, your commissions, this is your chance. Council members, this is your platform. Tonight, we will start with Council Member Huntington. Do you have anything you want to share with us?
Just we had a MRBT meeting on 11th of January where we elected Mr. Councilman Sullivan as our chairman. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Krogman.
I do not have anything, Mayor.
Councilmember Lozey is absent. Councilmember Schluter.
Few things. Region 9 development, we had a full board meeting on Wednesday, January 12th. Couple things out of that. CARES Act funding loans, they need to be distributed by June. They still did have some money available. The Comprehensive Economic Development System for 2022 through 2026 was approved by the board. We also had a couple presentations, one of them from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency Climate Director gave a presentation that stormwater system impacts was the biggest thing that came out of it. And we also had a report on electric vehicle usage coming up and what cities can do to prepare for it. HRA meeting on the 19th, we elected our new board. We approved a training program for Director Huntington. And the final walkthrough was completed on the construction project and all units are coming back online for tenant occupancy. Before the next meeting, there's a Sueur County officials meeting Wednesday in Waterville, and there's a Highway 169 Corridor Coalition online legislative reception meet and greet meeting Monday before the council meeting. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Schluter. Moving on to Mr. Sullivan.
We had an
Councilmember
EDA,
Sullivan.
or we're supposed to have an EDA meeting tonight, but we did not have quorum. Secondly, the only other important part back to our transit meeting is our rates will be re-implemented effective January 31st for all transit riders. That's something we haven't had for 2 years, and we're bringing that back on board. So the rates will be effective January 31st.
Thank you. Councilmember Swanberg.
I have nothing tonight.
Thank you. I have a Ridgeview board meeting tomorrow, 3 o'clock. That's all I have to share with anybody. Mr. Krugel, anything you want to share?
Just two items. Councilmember Krogman and I have an MMPA meeting tomorrow morning, so we'll be both at that. Also, you'll start seeing some marketing material for the Future of the City Forum. I sent an email out, I think, to the City Council and the Planning Commission today. That will be on March 26th at 10:30 a.m. at the high school auditorium. Shorter event, about an hour long, and you'll have an opportunity to kind of talk and do a breakout session for the second half of it. So those details we'll be marketing them and getting it out to the public. And really, we want to try to get as many people to that event as we can, as it's our our first Future of the City Forum. So more to come with that. That's all I have.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. I want to thank you for all your participation. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to end this meeting. Thank you very much, Mr. Huntington. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.